Let's delve into the first part of the chapter, where the laws of sacrifices are laid out. The first part of Numbers chapter 15 presents a fascinating assortment of sacrifices, each carrying its unique significance and purpose. These sacrifices were a cornerstone of Hebrew worship, an expression of obedience and reverence, and a tangible way of engaging with the divine. First, we encounter the burnt offering, a voluntary act of worship expressing devotion, commitment, and complete surrender to God. It was wholly consumed by fire, an act symbolizing the total dedication to God. Next is the grain offering, often accompanying the burnt offering. Prepared with fine flour, oil, and frankincense, it was a fragrant aroma pleasing to God. It represents the fruit of labor and thanksgiving to the Lord for His provision. The third sacrifice is the fellowship or peace offering, a communal act expressing thankfulness, love, and fellowship. It was the only offering where the offerer partakes in the meal, symbolizing peace and communion with God. Following this, we find the sin offering, a mandatory sacrifice for unintentional sins. It signifies the seriousness of sin, even if committed unknowingly, and the need for atonement and forgiveness. Finally, we have the guilt offering, required for specific unintentional sins that required restitution. It emphasized making amends and the necessity of restitution in God's law. These sacrifices, though varied in nature, were unified in purpose, to worship and obey God. They also served as a poignant reminder of humanity's dependence on God's grace and mercy. Each sacrifice was a physical manifestation of spiritual truths, a way to engage with God on a deeply personal level. It's important to remember that these weren't mere rituals. They were acts of worship, expressions of faith, and demonstrations of obedience to God's commandments. They remind us of our need for forgiveness, our longing for communion with God, and our desire to live in obedience to His commands. These sacrifices were not just rituals, but a demonstration of obedience and reverence to God's commandments. Moving on, we encounter a unique case of unintentional sin. But what does that mean, and how does it apply to us today? So let's delve into this concept. In the book of Numbers, chapter 15, unintentional sin is presented as a transgression committed without the knowledge that what is being done is wrong. It's a fascinating concept, isn't it? A sin committed in ignorance without intent to disobey God's law. This isn't about willful disobedience or rebellion, but rather a genuine mistake. Now you might wonder, why does it matter? Why would God care about unintentional sins if they're made in innocence or ignorance? Well, it's not about God being overly strict or punitive. Rather, it's about His desire for purity and righteousness among His people. Even unintentional sins committed out of ignorance can create a barrier between us and God. The concept of unintentional sin serves as a reminder of our human frailties. We are imperfect beings prone to making mistakes, yet it is through acknowledging these mistakes, even the ones we are not aware of, that we grow in our spiritual journey. It teaches us humility, the need for constant vigilance, and the importance of seeking God's guidance in all we do. But here's the beautiful part. The book of Numbers also outlines how God provides a way for atonement even for these unintentional sins. This is where we see the grace and mercy of God shining through. When the unintentional sin is realized, there is a prescribed sacrifice, a gesture of repentance, and God, in His boundless mercy, forgives. This isn't about a God who punishes, but a God who forgives and guides. This is about a God who understands our human weaknesses and provides a way back to Him, even when we stumble unknowingly. Unintentional sin, as illustrated in this chapter, reflects our inherent human frailties, but also God's mercy when we seek forgiveness. In contrast, the chapter also presents a case of deliberate sin, but what is the consequence of such action? Here we delve into a tale of the Sabbath breaker, a man who knowingly violated the sacred day of rest by gathering wood. His actions were not hidden. They were observed and reported to Moses and Aaron. This was not an accidental transgression. It was a deliberate defiance of God's laws. He was placed in custody, not out of malice, but to seek the Lord's guidance on the appropriate response. The verdict? He was stoned to death by the entire community as commanded by the Lord. A harsh penalty indeed, but a clear demonstration of the gravity of willfully disobeying God's laws. This is not a tale of retribution, but a stark reminder of the severity of deliberate sin and the profound respect demanded by these divine laws. Deliberate sin, as we see, has severe consequences, emphasizing the importance of obedience to God's laws. Finally, the chapter ends with a symbolic reminder. But how do these tassels serve as a reminder of God's commandments? The answer lies in the rich symbolism that these humble tassels carry. In the book of Numbers chapter 15, God commanded the Israelites to attach tassels to the corners of their garments. These weren't just decorative. Each tassel represented the sacred laws, the divine commandments that the Israelites were bound to obey. They were a constant, visible symbol, a reminder that was always within sight and reach. Every time an Israelite saw or touched these tassels, they were reminded of their duty towards God. It was a call to remember and obey the laws, to live a life that was pleasing to God. Like a compass pointing towards the divine, these tassels guided the Israelites on their spiritual journey. The tassels, then, are a tangible reminder of our duty to observe God's commandments faithfully. Are you ready for the next chapter? Just click here to go straight to it.